&TEAM will soon be releasing their first single, Samidare, and recently released a concept video and photos for this new album, which means time for more theories. Now, while my videos usually focus on the lore behind their story, Grey City, we'll also be talking a little more on the story of &TEAM. As I'm sure you've already guessed from the mood teaser and concept clip, Samidare seems to focus on friendships and relationships, and the distance one may feel between the person they desire to be close to. As an anxious people pleaser, this is honestly something I can really relate to. I often find myself worried. Are they annoyed by me? Am I being too much? Do they like being with me as much as I do with them? Or am I the only one who feels this way? And even though you're closer to them, you still sometimes have a hard time really understanding them. It's amazing that all of these emotions and questions I've felt can be seen in this concept clip. The boys just do such an amazing job at expressing this distance and the strong desire to be together. I don't believe the feelings we see in this concept clip are just to showcase what we might see in the lore, but to also reflect what they might have experienced in their own story. In the clip, we have various units that help express these emotions. One of the first units we see is Yuma and Taki. As is the case with all the members of &TEAM, Yuma and Taki get along pretty well, and was actually a friendship we first started to see in & Audition. In the show, Taki consistently expressed his desire to work with Yuma, and when the debut members were announced, Taki was the first to run to Yuma's side. We also know that while Taki felt this way about Yuma, Yuma was focused on making it into the group and had a hard time fully enjoying himself through that process. It wasn't until he made it into the group that he was finally able to relax and become who he is now. And I fully believe it was because of Taki and the others that he was truly able to do so. But as we see in the concept clip, it wasn't easy for either to truly understand each other's hearts. And in a sense, even though they walked the same path, their hearts barely missed each other. Though that isn't to say that's how it is now, as now they're definitely really good friends and goof around a lot more. But this could be the road it took to get there. Next we have Kay and Joe. Those who have been following &TEAM since & Audition and had the privilege of watching some of the side content that was released during, know just exactly what kind of relationship Joe and Kay had together. Joe honestly had a pretty rough time in & Audition, at least from a viewer's perspective. From what we've seen, he received the most criticism from the judges, which meant having more to prove. But fortunately, he wasn't alone. Kay was one of Joe's biggest supporters during the show, and encouraged Joe as he worked towards a chance to debut. Kay himself felt like he could really relate to Joe, and was always excited at the chance to work with him. And while we don't often hear from Joe's perspective, I feel we can see a glimpse of it from the concept clip. Their scenes seem to illustrate the respect and admiration that Joe has for Kay. As Kay takes his next step, Joe watches from a distance, looking up to him. And while of course I can't say or assume that this is his experience, these photos and clips seem to reflect the distance he may have felt as he attempts to reach Kay. But Kay's always been the kind of person who will make sure his next step brings him closer to you. We then have the unit with Weiju, Fuma, and Nicholas, where EJ seems to be at the center. In the clips, both Nicholas and Fuma express their distance from EJ, but also showcase a desire to be closer as they watch him from afar. For Fuma, he's described EJ as someone he's always felt comfortable with, and even at the beginning, he expressed his relief at being partnered with him during & Audition, and even believes that it's because of this that they both ended up becoming leaders. And for Weiju, he expressed that Fuma is his leader, someone he can go to when he's having a hard time. Nicholas also has a very close relationship with EJ, as they've been friends since before & Audition, and got closer to each other as time went by. Since almost the beginning, Nicholas has felt this desire to debut with him, but it definitely wasn't always that way. In fact, if you look back at their moments in Island, they rarely even spoke to each other, and face some challenges in first having to bridge that gap. But as we see in the clip, Weiju slowly makes his way to them, eventually closing this distance. And then finally, we have Maki and Harawa. Honestly, their relationship is the one I can probably relate to the most, as it's the one that directly reflects the words spoken in Harawa's narration. In their clip, we see Maki looking at a map, trying to find a way to connect. He looks to Harawa, his eyes expressing this desire to be closer. But Harawa plays with a toy train, completely unaware of this distance and his desire. This scene and the words that Harawa expresses in the trailer are all too familiar. Maki and Harawa began this new path together as they flew to Korea to train for and audition. This is where their friendship first blossomed. But just as Harawa said in the concept clip, not all friendships are easy. We later discovered that at some point along the way, Maki began to worry about their friendship and questioned whether or not he was a bother to Harawa. Despite being friends, he felt distant and had a desire to get closer, but was uncertain if Harawa wanted the same. While each of these units each have an end within the clip, Harawa and Maki seem to be the exception, as they're the only ones not shown together again. However, when you watch the final scene, Maki looks to the screen, and we realize that it may be that Harawa has been speaking to him all along. And just as Taki was watching Yuma behind the camera in his scene, so too is it possible that Harawa was watching Maki, as Harawa too has a camera in his concept photo, and we soon see Maki as the center of it in his, showcasing that their hearts have always been connected. One last thing I'd like to point out is that long ago, EJ was once called the glue of the AND-team. I feel like this is also illustrated in the clip, as he seems to be the only one worried about the distance, and is the first one who tries to get closer. Obviously, all of these emotions and feelings of conflict within their friendships, if they experienced it at all, is in the past, and is something they've probably used to grow a stronger bond. But even if they haven't experienced it, the director knew what they were doing when they made this clip, as they utilized the friendships they have with each other to showcase feelings and emotions the audience can surely connect with, and will surely touch the hearts of both new and older viewers. Honestly, I absolutely love this concept and just the theme of friendship. It's actually how I got into K-pop, as the first K-pop song I listened to and enjoyed was BTS's Spring Day, which not only resonated with the hearts of many, but also mentioned friendship, something that I didn't feel was as popular of a topic within K-pop back in the day. I don't know if I would call this all theories, as it relates more to their story as AND-team than it does their lore, but definitely would at least say that friendship, relationships, and the distance one may sometimes feel in them was the overarching message and theme of the clip. I'd also like to end this part by saying that I believe all friendships within AND-team are pretty equal, and they all love each other much the same, but these just seem to be the units that we're more focused on since we're a bit more familiar with their stories. But now, onto the lore! A quick disclaimer that everything in this part of the video are just theories about their now and future lore, and definitely not confirmed. AND-team's first albums, First Howling, focused on the story of Darkmoon the Grey City. However, that series, along with the series that AND-team was featured in, Darkmoon the Blood Altar, has ended. Samidare marks the beginning of a new series of albums that is set to be focusing on the seasons. It's the beginning of a new chapter in their career, and also the beginning of a new story. However, I don't believe this means that they'll no longer be werewolves, nor that they'll no longer be connected to Darkmoon. After all, this is a series of stories that was established way back since Island, and I don't think they plan on ending it anytime soon, especially since they just joined. I do believe, however, that this is part of an in-between story, either taking place in the time between the story of Grey City and the Blood Altar, or the time between the Blood Altar and Two Moons. And while of course we don't know which yet, I believe it's quite possible that it's sometime after Grey City. Why do I believe this? When the webtoon series for Grey City ended, their Instagram and Twitter pages posted promotional content for fans to check out their ending. And within this content, we see train tickets as at the very end of Gray City, the boys leave to a new place. But where, we don't quite know yet, as their destination is kept hidden. One thing I almost know for sure is that it most likely isn't Riverfield though, as in order to hide their identity, they can't really stay as students for 20 years. And then recently, the first promotional content that dropped for their new album was a train, or at least a train station, showing us their new destination, Samidare. So what we see in their concept clip could be their journey to becoming one pack, as it was only just before this that the pack finally came together. It's why I believe you see this distance between them. Having only just become a pack, they have yet to really build these friendships together, and the units we see may be units that'll be more developed within their story. Hence why we have an apparent fight scene, and why a lot of the ones who want to grow closer to each other are the ones who've never been together at all. And now finally we have the more deeper theories. There are some obvious hints to the connection of time in these clips. For example, Yuma and Taki's scene where they seemingly walk backwards, and Joe's scene where cherry blossoms fall upwards. And some fans even believe that their photos hint at separate universes, like Yuma's and Taki's photos, which seem to show them on the same path at different times. I'd also like to point out that each of their photos take place at 2 separate times, day and night, which I mentioned before can sometimes hint at 2 separate timelines, though I'll leave it up to you whether you think that's the case this time. And one last connection to time that we don't exactly see in this video is the Magic Island. The Magic Island, a place that exists within multiple worlds within the Hive universe, has yet to officially appear in the world of Antime, though we've seen hints to it. However, one connection in this clip to this Magic Island is the train. According to TXT lore, the way to get to the Magic Island is through a tunnel. This tunnel takes you through different dimensions until you finally get to your Magic Island. I feel like I bring this up every time, but once again, the one who stands out most to me in this concept clip is Haruwa. As I mentioned before, Samidare is the beginning of this new story, and Haruwa is the one who introduces us to it through his narration. However, it's not the first time we've seen him begin this story. In their debut trailer that started first howling, while it was the voice of Kentaro Sakaguchi who narrated the trailer, it was actually the voice of Haruwa as the narrator speaks of their story in his perspective. It was because of this and his imagery that seemed to reflect Kentaro's role of Kiri that I believed Haruwa to be Kiri from another timeline. And when their concept clips and MVs came out, I believed that it was Haruwa that was meant to be the time traveler of their story, who traveled back in time to change certain events. While I'm still not sure if he's Kiri or just Haruwa, I still believe he has a strong connection to time and time travel, and is more aware of the outcome of events occurring around him. We see this in a lot of his scenes that seem to mirror the scenes I've brought up from previous content, like the narration, the toy train, reflecting him playing with dinosaurs in their balloon concept, which I mentioned could hint at him being an observer in time or someone who has a bit more control, and the camera, which I mentioned could be a reflection of Jin's role in BTS's story. Needless to say, I think it's probably time for an updated version of my video on Haruwa, as a lot has happened since the beginning of First Howling. And that's all for now. A quick honorable mention is, once again, EJ. Recently, members said that the member whose lines they wish they had the most were EJ's, which honestly got me really excited. For those who don't know, Weiju happens to be my main Antime bias, and his voice is my favorite, so the idea of hearing more of him in their songs made me really happy. But hearing this also reminded me of Enhypen. When members hyped up another member's lines or role in the comeback, that member ended up becoming the main character of their concept trailers. So it's possible that we may get this story from EJ's perspective, which honestly makes a little sense when you consider where they left off in Gray City. If there is a focus on EJ in their story, then I do believe it'll be in their song Maybe, or Kimi ni Kaeru, as one of the translations for it reads, Return to You. However, I do believe this song can also be from another member's perspective, as Kaeru typically is used in returning to your true home. Thus, the title could be saying that returning to you is returning to their home. And with a theme like friendship, home could be each other. Honestly, the title of this song is really fun, as it has various translations and meanings for it. But I did talk about it in another short video, so I won't be talking about that too much here. And that's it! I am so excited for this album, as I know it's really going to break me emotionally, and just as the kind of music Antime desires to make, I believe this album will touch many people's hearts. So, what did you see in this concept clip? What theories do you have about their upcoming story? And what song are you most looking forward to? Thanks for watching, and see you again next time.